All right, hey, so welcome everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and get going, and as people join us, that's totally fine. I'm here just to talk a little bit about the mask making initiative. I'm sure you all have a lot of experience, or perhaps you have a lot of experience with making masks and the need that we currently have. And so right now, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what we did at MakeHaven, and so that you can hopefully learn from our lessons. And if there's a need in your community, you can recreate that and go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and just kick off. My name is Kate. I am the operations manager at MakeHaven. MakeHaven is a nonprofit community makerspace located in New Haven, Connecticut. And so on March 16th, we closed our space, our makerspace, in accordance with the governor recommendations. And since that time, we have been looking for ways to continue making, to continue support people in making, and of course, to address the needs that we're coming across with this pandemic. So how do we do that? Well, how did we end up in this position? So in our makerspace, we do have a number of sewing machines. We also have volunteers who are called facilitators who help people out to learn the machines and learn sewing and all of that sort of thing. So we had some sort of structure and a number of members who are already sewing. So we thought we would take advantage of that and see how we could meet the needs. We're also really fortunate. Our shop manager, Lior, is an EMT, and he has a BSE in biomedical engineering. So on our small staff of 3, we were lucky to have someone who had some medical background and connections as well to help us out. So all of that kind of came together with the need for masks coming out for cloth sewn masks, as you all know about the PPE shortage. And so, you know, we thought we would love to help. Like a lot of people, we just thought, what can I do? How can I help in this crazy time? So that's kind of how we started. Around the same time, we also had a friend of mine who is the executive director of a local soup kitchen, the Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen near us, reached out and basically said, I need a bunch of face masks for my staff and for our volunteers. So the stay-at-home order comes out, and here we are. Some people can't stay at home. They don't have a home to go to. So as you know, we have a lot of essential workers and people who still needed to be out there, but there wasn't the protection needed for them, especially in some of these nonprofit organizations and things like that, because all the protection that we had, we were trying to reserve for our first responders. So that was our first step, and our first start was we saw this need and we wanted to help out. So in the very beginning, when this started at the end of March, there wasn't a lot of information out there. It's still a developing situation. And so at that time, we were just kind of trying to figure out what patterns do we need, what materials, what are the best practices. We've been very fortunate as a world that there's been more science coming out of this and more research. And so as that has come out, we've kind of evolved with it. But I'll remind you back to these very early days when we didn't have a whole lot of solid information and we were just trying to figure it out. So our first step was we started by curating the patterns that we were finding out there. Of course, now there's even more patterns, which is both great because it's good to have a lot of options, but also can be kind of overwhelming. So what we've continued to try to do is to curate some basic patterns so that we have patterns that are accessible to people at all sewing levels. So I personally am not an expert tailor, sewer, anything like that. I have a little bit of home ec from middle school, and then I have some experience that I got in the makerspace itself, although that wasn't my main area at MakeHaven. So I've learned a lot in the past 2 months, but I was also fortunate to work with a bunch of people and to, you know, use this community and able to build that up. So that's where we started. We basically just started by finding patterns and curating them and trying to put them together. Once we had sort of the very basic framework, we decided to put up a website, which I'll go ahead. I will present my screen just for a second here so you can all see this. So we put up a website with our basic information that has been evolving as we've gone through it. So let's get back to you here. So we put up this website here, and this is the face masks site at makehaven.org/face masks. And this was just sort of a landing page that we put together. It shows our virtual sewing circles that are coming up, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. That's one of our big pieces that we've done. We have a sign up which you can see right here. It's just a very simple MailChimp form, so we can, get people's information and get them updates as we have it. It has videos and patterns based around different need, different skill levels, and also as well as particular hospitals and clinics in our area that were requesting specific patterns. We put those specifics up. We also have our porches here, which I'll talk a little bit more about. This is one of our big pieces of how to get materials to people and get completed masks from people in a no contact situation. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. And then we also have organizations in need. So this is a basic Google form. Again, we are just kind of going from scratch here, saying, hey, organizations, if you need face masks, if you're low on PPE, please fill this out and let us know. So that's sort of the basics of where we started. Come back to me here. So we started that, and honestly, when we started, this was at the very end of March. We had our first virtual sewing circle in I think April 1st. And so we were thinking, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to jump in here and we're going to help while the supply chains are all figuring this out. And we'll jump in for a few weeks to help these essential workers so that people can continue to, as safely as possible, work at the soup kitchens and things like that. And within a couple of weeks, we thought, we will have done our wonderful maker goodness and we'll move on. That hasn't exactly been the case, so we've been continuing, but just to know where we were starting from. So basically our initial intent was to get masks to nonprofit organizations who were doing work that needed to protect their staff and their volunteers. So that's kind of where we started. So that was 8 weeks ago, and we're still going. So the need is still there. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well. We are now 10 weeks into our stay-at-home order here in Connecticut. And at this point, it's the first time that I'm really starting to hear about more reliable, mass-produced, mass-available masks, cloth sewn face masks. For example, you can now get them from Old Navy. You can order them online. That's something that's just happened. So it's taken a little longer than we expected, but that's still starting. That's starting to come out. However, there is still a need. There is still lots of populations who can't even access the Old Navy level of masks. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So our first problem that we were addressing that I talked about was how to get the materials to people and so that they can sew, and how to get the completed masks back from people and send them out. So as you saw earlier, one of the great ideas that came to us, the executive director at MakeHaven said, what about using people's porches? And so we basically just reached out to friends around the city of New Haven who had covered porches and said, can you help our efforts? Can you donate your porch? And so those wonderful people said, sure, use my porch. And we put boxes. In fact, they actually put 2 boxes, one that says materials and one that says completed masks on their porch. And we posted those onto our website. And in the very earliest parts, materials were all over the place. As you may remember, finding elastic was a pretty difficult thing. But it was a start. We had a lot of people who were interested in sewing, people who had sewing machines at home, which is great. Many of them had stashes of fabric and were able to jump in. Some had elastic, some didn't. So in the very earliest parts, we were looking at how to get elastic, looking at elastic alternatives. So looking at ties, using bias tape or using trim tape, different ways that we can modify patterns. We looked at all sorts of things. We had rubber bands that we were wrapping in scrunchies. So it was a really neat way to kind of have people come together and be innovative and creative together. So back to our porches, we have those porches that we've created, and we told people that you can just basically come and pick things up as we got materials donated, or if people just had, I said, hey, if you have extra cotton out there, you can leave it on the porch. And so people just started with our basic masks, started making masks. And one thing that we did learn that I recommend is, as people are dropping off completed masks, we have them bag them and label them if they're washed or if not. We have decided that we only want to pass along masks that have been run through a hot wash and that are more not sterilized, but sanitized and as clean as we can make them. So to limit that contact, we have people mark that the bags are washed, and also how many masks are in that bag. So whether people are delivering 8 or 25 or whatever they can do, that way we can limit the contact. We don't have to open up those masks. Then part 2 comes, how do we get them to the people in need? So I mentioned starting off with the Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen and their need. So they filled out that form. As word got around and we, passed each other, organization to organization, the requests continued to come in, and we were very fortunate to partner with the United Way of Greater New Haven. So as a makerspace, we have friends around this great city, and so we were able to partner up with them. They were already working to try to address the needs of their shelters that they support and their soup kitchens, and so they were kind of a natural good fit. And so we gave them access to our Google form, and we shared a form, and they took on the delivery aspect of that. So that was a really great piece to have someone else grab onto. If you're looking to organize and you don't have United Way or a similar organization that can jump in and help out, I've had volunteers who are sewing, or people who want to be involved but can't sew, work as drivers and to bring things out. So there's people out there who want to help. So it's just sort of a matter of creating a basic infrastructure to get it going. So our virtual sewing circles, this is another thing that we started that we thought would be kind of just, let's get together, let's share tips and tricks. And we are now in our 9th week of that. And so we meet every, this is in Connecticut, so we're in Eastern time, Wednesdays at 5:15 p.m. and Saturdays at 11 a.m. We've been meeting twice a week, and it's completely free, completely open to anyone. We've had people from all around. We had people from Cincinnati Makerspace join. We are kind of focused around with our, porch system and things like that with our local community, but happy to support anyone who's making masks anywhere, wherever you are, in any way that we can do that. So it's been really nice. We have a group of over 120 plus people who come to various circles, some who come regularly, some who pop in and out, some who just come as an opening. But the nice benefit of that has been that I found that it's a good entryway for people. If people want to get started, but they're not quite sure, they're not quite familiar, maybe they're like myself where they have a sewing machine, but they're really not very good at it. They can use some supports. And so being able to talk with people, ask questions, where are you getting your fabric? All of those kinds of things. Plus, particulars about patterns, can someone demo how to do a pleat, those kinds of things. Since then, we actually, MakeHaven has done a hand sewing face mask meetup workshop online, a virtual one, and we are planning to do one that is around people with sewing machines. So we'll have some of that, but most people are working off the videos and working pretty well. And then we just come together and so that people can ask questions, and people have asked all sorts of things. We've looked at different kind of masks. For example, right now, we've got some requests. You've all probably seen the requests from the deaf community, as well as people working with children who are looking for masks that have clear portions. So we're playing around with some of those patterns. And we're trying to, again, make sure that we have patterns and things that are available for people of all levels so that people can help out. We also have some people that are cutting out material, and we've made some kits and things like that. We've also had hospitals that are looking for particular things, both supply kits or say they want a particular pattern. One of the patterns was the curved mask. We started off calling it the Yale New Haven pattern. Many people know it as the Olson mask or the curved mask. The initial pattern was sort of tricky, and so we had some of our sewers from the sewing circles went in and helped edit that and make it a little more clear and make it a better fit for people to read through and get exactly what our hospitals in this area needed. So that was another thing that we were doing. So let's see. Yeah, where to order materials, that was a big piece. Tips and tricks and elastic. Finally, at last, it seems that elastic is a resource that is back in the world, which we're all very happy about. But especially early on, when we didn't have that, it was really tricky. And so once we had someone recommend the Etsy store CTUSA for elastic, and when my Overstock order and my Walmart order and all of my orders were delayed by weeks and weeks and weeks. And then this came in 3 days. And so those kinds of tips and tricks can really make a difference when you're trying to make all these masks. We were also very lucky to have a lot of partners. In the very early day, we worked with the Eli Whitney Museum. They are an experimental learning workshop. They work with students. They do field trips and things like that. Summer camp, teachers, families, my kids have gone to field trips there, whereas MakeHaven is 18 up makerspace. So it was great to partner with them because with all of their workshops and things like that, they happen to have a lot of materials on hand. So they had a bunch of pipe cleaners that we used for nose pieces early on. They had a bunch of elastic and they gave us all their elastic. They had some t-shirts that we were able to cut up to use for straps. So finding partners like that was absolutely really wonderful. We also had another sewist from our virtual sewing circles who came in and connected us with Ulbrich Steel, which is up in Wallingford and North Haven here in Connecticut. And this metal that you see me holding up here is actually the metal nose pieces that go into the N95 masks. And they were able to donate this giant spool of it. And so now I've set my children to work cutting out nose strips, which we can bundle and leave on those porches. So basically, for the mask, the general need is the material, the nose pieces, elastic or ties, and sometimes some of the little accessories, like we've used our makerspace to 3D print some ear savers. We have people who are crocheting ear savers, as well as some tie holders. Those are another Thingiverse print that you can do. But those main three are the three things that we want to try to get to people. So our requests. Who are we serving here? We've had over 60 organizations that have reached out to us through that simple Google form. We've had homeless shelters, soup kitchens, nursing homes, different hospitals, as I've mentioned, clinics, family services, the postal service. In these very early days, the mail's still going, and they didn't have any protection for their workers. So basically, all sorts of things like that. At this point, our little Connecticut group has delivered over 3,000 masks directly. And we've facilitated about 1,000 more that we know of. I've asked people, some people are sewing for their organizations that they love, nonprofits that they work with, anything like that. So I've told people, if you think of it, let me know. We're just trying to get an idea, but that's great if people are delivering them directly. So I have reports at least of another 1,000 that have happened there. We also did some additional dabbling in other PPP as the needs came up. We had a need for gowns, and so we have some people who are sewing gowns. We also had a sort of overnight surprise urgent need for scrub caps that came up very quickly. We were kind of asking about it, and the hospital said, we're okay. And then all of a sudden we started hearing from nurses, we've got to find this. Luckily, we were kind of anticipating this, and I had a couple of people that I could direct people to. Another thing that we did, I'll go ahead and present real quick again. And so you can see another initiative that we created for people who are interested in helping out but may not have the skills or the time to help out in particular. So we made this program called So Good, S-E-W, so clever. And this is basically a way where people can donate, make a financial donation, and that donation is immediately translated into an order for masks, and those masks are donated to an organization in need. And the nice thing about this is that we're working with out of work sewists, people who are negatively impacted by COVID-19, who have been laid off, costumers and things like that, that we're able to basically give them an order. And so we just pass along the money for this and turn it around as an order. And so that has been a nice option to have, to utilize those people who have the ability and possibly the time to make a large amount of masks and help fill this need, but who also could really use the income in this difficult time because they've been laid off or furloughed or things like that. So that was something that we did that has been nice, and also gives people who aren't able to take on sewing a way to get involved and to help out. Another thing that we found that came out was, especially as here in Connecticut, as of May 20th, we're slowly starting to reopen the state. And so more and more people, the need has expanded beyond those initial organizations that I mentioned. Again, we thought this was just going to be a few weeks, but here we are, 9 weeks or whatever it is. So we also have individuals who are looking for masks. On our makehaven.org/face mask page, we have patterns for people, including no-sew patterns and things like that for individual use. But we also have links to some of these people who are professional sewers and tailors who have been making masks so that people can purchase masks locally. We have different things, everything from people who are out of work and just looking to help out. We have an organization near us that is doing a mask that's a little bit more expensive. They're charging $20 a mask, but for every mask you purchase, they donate to others. So there's some sort of creative models that are happening out there. So if people have the money to be able to afford a $20 mask that gives two back, that's, a cool option. But so we put that information up as well for people who need directly to purchase masks for their families or things like that. I know a lot of people are sewing for their friends and family, and that's great and helpful, but not everyone has that. But still there is a need. And so even, with access to that, there are certainly parts of the community, often some of the most vulnerable parts, that don't have access, that don't have the money to even buy an Old Navy mask, or to go to someone who don't have access to get somewhere to get a mask. So that's something that we're kind of continuing and evolving as this program gets, continues, and as we're looking towards the future. We want to make sure that there's mask access for everyone who has it. We're working with a couple organizations now directly who are working rather than just to get masks to employees and volunteers, but to individuals in need, people who are living at or below the poverty line, people who don't have that kind of access. And so that's something that we're looking to do in the future. And as we continue to sew, like I said, we're over 4,000 masks now, and we're continuing to sew with our sewing circles and our porches, and we'll continue that. Another thing that we are hoping to do in the next few days is to create a simple document. I've seen some great things at Maker Faire that I'm going to help collect, as far as just some basic information that we're going to put out in English and Spanish that could go with the masks. So we have people who are making masks and leaving them like in little free libraries, as well as donating them directly. So if you are getting them to people who may not be as familiar with the mask, we want people to understand, there's so many different kinds of masks, as you've probably seen. If you get a mask that has a pocket, know what that pocket is, what you should and shouldn't put in the pocket. If you have the nose bridge, which we highly recommend, especially for anyone with glasses, and sunglasses season is coming to us here in the Northeast and is elsewhere, how to get that good fit there. We also want people to understand, if you're working with ties, what kind of tips and tricks you can do. We've learned a lot about using pony beads or using different things to help with the fit. So we want to try to pass that information along, as well as information about how to do a good job washing the masks, how to safely wash them and dry them so that they are safe to inhale, they're not growing anything, but also that they're being washed regularly to be as effective as possible. So that's something that we're going to be doing moving forward. So I think that's the general tools that we have. I'll check the chat real quick and see if there's anything. JR has put some links in there, which is great to have.
Yeah. So somebody said, can you show the pony beads or link to it?
Yeah. So, I'm actually we're going to be putting that on to the MakeHaven face mask page that just came up on this morning's call. I don't have any pony beads on me right now, but basically, if you're dealing with the elastic here, what we're talking about, and we have several very inventive sewists who've come up with all sorts of great tricks, and that's why I kind of want to put some fit tricks up there. But if you have the elastic, you want it to be a little bit longer. Most for ear loop elastic are suggesting 6 to 7 inches. I'd say maybe a little bit longer if it's a little bit looser, and then you take a pony bead. Cool, let's see if we can do this. And it would just go right on here. And it basically becomes a way to tighten the ear loops for a fit. Another great thing that someone has done is with the ear loops is she takes the ear loop and then puts a hair elastic, I'll do this with this kind of elastic here to show you, but just looping one of these elastics, and then she puts a key ring and then a second hair elastic. So basically what that does is it's extending the ear loops to become something that goes all the way around the head. So there's a lot of little tricks. We've really learned is that there's a great need for all different kinds of masks. People are regularly saying, which mask should I make? And what we're learning is that depending on how you use the mask, if you're taking it on and off, like when I go to the porches to deliver materials and pick up these masks, I like to use this mask with my ear loops because I'm taking it on and off. But if I'm going in to a space that I'm going to be there longer, I really like the fit that I get from this mask, which is my mask that has ties. It ties around the head, it gets a tighter seal, and this is a pocket mask, so I will put filtration material in there as well. So for longer use, that's what I use. But again, people's faces are different, people's uses and needs are different, and that's why we have sort of a variety of masks, and we're able to kind of try to make something that can fit a number of people, but also give people ways that they can modify and make their masks as comfortable as possible. Because again, the most effective mask is the mask that you're going to wear. So we want to make sure that the people are able to get masks and get things they wear. Another little bit of feedback, we've gotten wonderful feedback from the organizations, so appreciative, just really thankful and jumping in there, and that's been really great. One piece of information that we got was that I think in the very beginning, we had a lot of wonderful quilters who were working from their stashes and had a lot of lovely floral patterns that were less appealing to some of our older gentlemen who were receiving the masks. And so we had, a little bit of a push for a little bit to try to get some more masculine masks out there. Because again, we recognize that as much as this is a health concern, that if people are uncomfortable in their communities or wherever they are wearing a mask, they're not going to wear it. So we want to make it as comfortable, a good fit, and as well as something that fits your personality. So do we have any other questions?
Yeah, so there was a comment that toggles, which are those little plastic things that are spring-loaded, often found in camping gear or camping repair kits, that those are great.
Those are absolutely fantastic. Yeah, we had one of the people on our circle was making with cords. So that's another question: is do we do the masks that have the loop a single loop that goes all the way around the head? One single cord, and the cord with the toggles creates a really nice fit. So if you have access to those toggles, those can be a really nice benefit. And I would say to anyone here or else, we are continuing the sewing circles, at least for the foreseeable future. So you're welcome to come and learn more with us, to chat with us, to talk to people much more experienced than I am when it comes to sewing, and that will really help with all different kinds of inventive ideas that people have come up with as far as fit and tips and tricks. And so if you're looking to do something like this in your community and you want to come and chat with us and take it away, we're absolutely behind that. So please feel free. I'm getting close to the end of my time, but if anyone has any other questions, you're welcome to throw them in the chat. Let me make sure I got through all of our things that we've learned so I don't leave without anything. Yeah, I think most of our lessons learned are at makehaven.org/face masks. You're welcome to check out that page. If you have questions about organizing or any of those kinds of things, you're welcome to reach out to me. Maybe JR, if you can put my email address in the chat, you're welcome to email me directly. And like I said, you can definitely come to a sewing circle. I know it may not be as suitable times depending where in the time zone world you are, but you would certainly be welcome to pop in and talk with everyone about what we're doing. And if you have ideas of how to make it better, that's great. We're always open. We're always evolving. So that would be great.
Great. And for anybody listening to the recording who doesn't see the chat, info@makehaven.org is a good email address that will get to Kate. And as we're closing up, some folks are saying, love your porch idea. Thank you. Good stuff, Kate. So the very helpful, someone is helping their 91-year-old young family sewist. And so folks are saying thank you as we wrap it up.
Yeah, one of the nicest thing has really been the community that has evolved. I mean, there are these people that I feel like I know them so well. You know, I'm seeing them, several of them I see twice a week. I think Meg, who's on the call here, who I've never met in person, but has been so helpful. There's a great and very supportive community that has evolved through this, and that's been a really nice thing, something we all need during quarantine, but also a great way to connect and to encourage and support each other. So that's been a really big piece. And we have people, we have a high school student who's been sewing, and her mom picks up kits all the way up to elderly people who are helping out, and who we're picking up directly from, so they don't even have to go to the porches. So it's a really great community to build. It really has given me a lot of hope, and I hope I've shared some of that with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out or meet us at a sewing circle. We've got that and other events at makehaven.org/events, so you can click there to check it out. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Maker Faire.
Thank you, Kate.